despicable. Also, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I think that's the first time he's ever heard any part of the Constitution in his life.
That is Mary Trump hammering her uncle Donald Trump over his call to end birthright citizenship.
We're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action.
It is a power grab. I don't think that there is any mechanism by which he can make it happen. But this is another instance in which we are in the unfortunate position of having to rely on Republicans to do the right thing and protect American citizens.
Some Republicans at least seem willing to protect the Constitution. One host on Fox News pointed out the 14th Amendment cannot be undone merely through a presidential order.
Yeah, you heard him say if we can. That's because birthright citizenship is enshrined in the 14th Amendment. Not only that, in 1898, in a Supreme Court case called Wong Kim Ark, they upheld birthright citizenship. In other words, there's constitutional precedent, there's Supreme Court precedent. You can try via executive action, but I think there are going to be some very big court hang-ups that might not go the way of the administration on birthright citizenship.
On top of Donald Trump's disregard for the Constitution, Mary Trump notes another issue about her uncle that is even more cutting and personal.
He's a deeply ignorant, cruel man who seems to forget that his father was a first-generation American. So if it hadn't been for birthright citizenship, my grandfather probably wouldn't have been allowed to stay here.
That's right. Fred Trump was born in New York, but his parents had just emigrated from Germany. And had it not been for the birthright citizenship as articulated in the Constitution, Fred Trump and his immigrant parents could have been deported. But never mind Donald Trump's family history or his hypocrisy. The interview on NBC News Meet the Press is also generating a lot of controversy for another reason. Here is the full exchange, and watch the line of questioning from Meet the Press host Kristen Welker.
You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people. But we have to end it. We're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action.
Here is the analysis from the must-read daily newsletter, The News. Welker, can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action? Excuse the Jesus pogo stick out of me, but what the Jesus pogo stick Christ kind of question is that? National journalist who makes up fake presidential powers and bakes them into a question says what? Why not ask Trump whether he can catch the Hogwarts Express on platform 9 3/4? When Trump says he'll have to go back to the people to change the 14th Amendment, he's presumably talking about amending the Constitution, which, yeah, that's how you do it. In other words, it wasn't Trump, but NBC that put the absolutely most radical, illegal path on the table. 3 times. It was Trump who demurred. There was also little notice of Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, fact-checking the interview. He pointed out that Welker didn't include the 14th Amendment's requirement that they are born subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And Lee asserted that Congress has the power to define what it means to be born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's the real danger here. Claiming the power to define what things mean is pretty much the whole ball of wax. In fact, dictionaries have the power to define words. Courts can interpret laws, sure, but the amendment's language and jurisdiction is both already interpreted and also clear. If you're born here, as for instance the child of a diplomat, you're not subject to U.S. jurisdiction, diplomatic immunity, right? So Lee's arguing that Republicans can shrink the concept of jurisdiction to exclude the children of undocumented workers, which will mean he's effectively saying they can't even be arrested because he just redefined them as outside our jurisdiction. That's how smart these people are. If you're not a daily reader of the effing news, you are missing out big time, I'm telling you. It's the smartest and wittiest daily newsletter around. But anyway, back to the issue of undocumented immigrants. For years, we've heard folks on the right describe it as a crisis. But the fact is, for the past several months, before the election, border crossings reached their lowest levels since the end of the Trump administration. Yes, it is a fact that border crossings have dropped. The FBI and all law enforcement data also shows that undocumented migrants in the United States have a lower violent crime rate than people born in the United States. For all of the high-profile murder cases and claims about undocumented migrants creating mayhem, the data shows that migrant communities are more peaceful and safer and law-abiding than communities of people born in the United States. Now, there are also issues about U.S. productivity, thanks to migrant workers. A large number of the 11 million people Donald Trump wants to deport are central to the U.S. construction business, hotel services, and farming. If those workers are taken out of the United States, the labor force will be depleted, causing productivity to slow down and sending prices skyrocketing. Also, nonpartisan organizations estimate that just deporting 1 million undocumented migrants would cost law enforcement $100 billion. Because if you count all local and state police, as well as federal agents and security forces, the total is 800,000 cops. That means just to deport 1 million migrant workers, every cop in the United States would have to stop what they're doing and deport at least one migrant worker. In most police departments, when an arrest is made, there are usually 4 to 5 police for every person being hauled away. The point is that Trump's deportation plan, even if he tries to get rid of just a fraction of the undocumented migrants, will cost law enforcement a fortune and could tank the U.S. economy. So when political analysts echo the Trump talking points about the crisis right now involving illegal immigration, remember that the word crisis could also apply to the U.S. economy if and when it crashes. And that crisis would be far more severe and widespread. Finally, there is the constitutional crisis America will create if we just abandon amendments that Donald Trump doesn't like.
The reason why we have the 14th Amendment was because we enslaved an entire race of people. And it was to ensure that after the Civil War was over and they were freed, they were ensured and protected by citizenship being conferred upon them.
American history, law, and the economy are all against Donald Trump on this. To be fair, I get that most Americans don't read or understand the Constitution and probably think that Donald Trump can do whatever the hell he wants. Our society is full of uninformed and misinformed people. But the ignorance that Donald Trump perpetuates and the amplification provided by some people in the mainstream media will come with a cost. And sooner or later, if Donald Trump follows through, the pain will be felt far and wide, and not just in the families of recent immigrants. By the way, Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump's pick to be Secretary of Defense, is now getting publicly torched by a former Fox News colleague.
I have taken a public position against Pete Hegseth. I think he is the wrong man for the Pentagon. I think he should not be the defense secretary.
Newsmax host Greg Kelly worked with Pete Hegseth at Fox News, a dynamic Hegseth is dismissing.
This will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group. None of you, not to that camera at all.
But Kelly's camera at Newsmax has been brutal.
I'll rely on what his own attorney has said, that Pete Hegseth signed a non-disclosure agreement and paid money to a woman who accuses him of sexual assault. I was once accused of sexual assault, falsely. I would never in a billion years pay that person a dime. Pete Hegseth, that doesn't sound like a fighter. That sounds like somebody who's blackmailable.
And never mind the Hegseth vulnerabilities over accusations of rape, Kelly says adultery in the military is also unforgivable.
I have had issues. We've all had issues. He should not be the Secretary of Defense with this record. What we will see are service members pointing to that individual. Look at all of the things that he has been through. I should not be held accountable for any of this stuff. And that is a major problem.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Sajay, who wrote, "If you don't want people saying you are drunk at work, how about this? Don't drink at work." I hear you. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump getting trashed by his niece, Mary Trump. She is calling him deeply ignorant, and she is part of his family, or at least she was. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.